A single mistake in deep space could mean losing $1 billion spacecraft forever. This is the immense pressure facing the pioneers of autonomous space navigation, the brilliant minds who teach machines to sail the cosmos alone. We hear about the technological triumphs, but we rarely see the profound human journey behind them. By the end of this, you will understand the true emotional cost of automating the stars, a story of psychological strain and hard-won glory that reshapes our very definition of exploration. What drives a person to trust a creation they can no longer control? And what is the personal toll of building an intelligence that must survive where we cannot? What do you believe is the heaviest burden for those who chart the unknown? The blank screen glows, a silent and infinite challenge. A young engineer sits before it, their task almost mythic in scale. They must write lines of code that will one day steer a spacecraft to Mars with no one at the helm. This is not a simple programming assignment. It is an act of profound faith, the first heavy stone of responsibility placed upon the shoulders of these pioneers. They become digital cartographers, drawing maps for realms where no human has ever been, their work carrying the entire weight of future exploration. The vision is breathtaking, a future where humanity's reach extends across the solar system. But the path to that future is a tightrope walk over a chasm of theoretical impossibilities. Every algorithm, every line of logic is shadowed by a single, chilling question. What if it fails? Not a simple glitch, but a catastrophic failure that silences a billion-dollar mission forever, lost between the stars. This foundational pressure creates a strange emotional alloy, a blend of exhilarating excitement and cold dread. The thrill of building the future is permanently entwined with the terror of being the one whose creation might break it. This duality becomes their constant companion, setting the emotional stage for a journey that is about to transform from a beautiful, abstract dream into a tangible and terrifying reality. That single chilling question, what if it fails, begins to echo in every line of code. It materializes as a team lead, staring at a screen long after midnight, compulsively tracing the same navigation algorithm for the 100th time. Their finger hovers over the keyboard, terrified that a single misplaced decimal point, one tiny logical flaw, could silently doom a billion-dollar mission to drift forever. This is the paralysis of perfectionism, the first great emotional challenge. The desire for flawless performance slams directly into the inherent, chaotic uncertainty of space itself. The pressure is not just to be good, but to be perfect, and this demand creates a unique form of chronic stress. It is the weight of knowing your best might still not be enough, and that your small, human error could have cosmic consequences. Aerospace psychologists have a term for this environment. They call it an error-phobic culture, where the fear of making a mistake becomes more crippling than the mistakes themselves. Imagine the emotional toll of that constant vigilance. Team members start to question their own competence, a creeping imposter syndrome under the blinding spotlight of a project that cannot afford a single failure. They think, am I truly the right person for this, or am I just one bad day away from causing a disaster? This relentless pursuit of an unattainable perfect solution does more than just cause anxiety. It can actually stall progress as engineers become afraid to commit to a final design, and it can erode team morale as collaboration turns into mutual suspicion. Overcoming this is not just a technical problem, it demands a profound emotional shift. The team must learn to stop seeking a mythical, perfect code and start building something far more vital, resilient systems. They have to embrace the reality that space will always throw the unexpected at them, and their true strength lies not in preventing every possible error, but in creating a machine intelligent and adaptable enough to survive them. This transition from the pursuit of perfection to the cultivation of resilience is one of the hardest lessons they will ever learn. The simulation chamber door seals with a soft, definitive click. Inside, the world shrinks to the glow of monitors and the low, constant hum of cooling servers. For weeks, a navigation specialist lives here, a solitary guardian testing the limits of their creation against a universe of hypothetical disasters. This is not a simple technical check. It is a profound exercise in isolation, a deliberate echo of the loneliness their spacecraft will one day endure between planets. Cut off from their team, their family, from the simple rhythm of a normal day, they face a relentless parade of edge case scenarios. What if a sensor fails during a critical course correction? What if a cosmic ray scrambles the primary computer right as it approaches an asteroid? Each simulation is a high-stakes puzzle where failure is not an option, yet it is the very thing they are tasked with inviting. In this sterile bubble, the line between the digital and the personal begins to blur. Every simulated crash, every navigational dead end does not feel like a data point. It registers as a deep, private defeat. Conversely, a successful maneuver brings a surge of triumph that has no audience, a victory celebrated only in silence. Psychologists who study such environments point to the severe effects of this sensory deprivation and social isolation. Without external anchors, the mind's internal landscape becomes distorted. Anxiety can heighten, moods can swing unpredictably, and the sense of time itself stretches and warps, making a single day feel like a week. The emotional resilience forged in this chamber is not a happy byproduct. It is hard-won, a mental callus built through repeated exposure to stress and solitude. Here, the engineer develops a connection with their creation that borders on the spiritual. They learn its digital personality, its subtle quirks and unspoken strengths. This solitary confinement is a necessary crucible, a brutal but vital preparation for the real-time stresses of an active mission. It teaches them to sit with the silence, to find resolve within themselves when the only thing for company is the knowledge that help is truly millions of miles away. That silence in the simulation chamber is finally broken by a single, steady beep from a monitor millions of miles away. It is a tiny pulse of data, a whisper from the void carrying a monumental message. The spacecraft has just executed its first fully autonomous course correction. For a breathless moment, the control room is frozen. Every eye is locked on the scrolling telemetry, every mind racing to verify the numbers. Then the truth hits. It worked. The silence shatters into an explosion of pure, unadulterated joy. Cheers erupt, colleagues who have shared years of stress embrace in bear hugs, and tears of profound relief stream down faces. This is far more than a technical box being checked. It is a massive emotional release, a catharsis for all the sleepless nights and the relentless pressure of perfection. The years of doubt, the personal sacrifices of missed birthdays and quiet family dinners, are suddenly washed away in a wave of validation. The abstract lines of code they nurtured and argued over have just transformed into a trusted partner. Team members often speak of this moment in deeply personal terms, calling it a birth. It is the moment their digital child, their collective intelligence, takes its first independent step into the cosmos. This shared euphoria forges a bond between the engineers that is almost unbreakable, a core memory of collective triumph that will fuel them through the inevitable challenges still to come. That tiny, precise burn of thrusters in the empty dock proves the foundational concept is not just a theory, but a living, breathing reality. It injects a powerful, tangible dose of confidence and hope directly into the heart of the entire endeavor, proving they are not just building a machine, but raising a new kind of explorer. That collective euphoria, that moment of pure triumph, can vanish in an instant. It is erased by a single, flashing alert on a mission control console. The word is simple, almost clinical, anomaly, but in the context of deep space, it carries the weight of 1,000 nightmares. The spacecraft, their trusted partner, has reported a deviation in its attitude or trajectory that its own sophisticated artificial intelligence cannot explain or correct. The control room, once a place of quiet confidence, descends into a state of controlled panic. The air grows thick with a frantic, silent energy. Engineers scramble to their stations, their hearts pounding as they pore over torrents of incoming data, trying to diagnose a patient that is light minutes away. They cannot simply reach out and fix it. They are shouting into a canyon and waiting an eternity to hear the faintest echo. The emotional toll here is a brutal cocktail of profound helplessness and desperate, frantic problem-solving. Every second that ticks by feels like an hour, each one carrying the potential for the situation to spiral into irreversible catastrophe. This is the moment where years of theoretical training collide with raw, visceral fear. Team members later speak of the physical symptoms that grip them during these crises. A cold sweat beads on the forehead. A tightness seizes the chest, making it hard to breathe. Sleep becomes impossible, their minds racing through infinite scenarios while their creation, their child, is in peril millions of miles from home. Successfully navigating such an anomaly demands more than just brilliant technical skill. It requires an immense emotional fortitude to quiet the screaming instinct to panic, to force the mind to remain calm and think with crystal clarity under extreme duress. The team must function as a single organism, trusting each other implicitly, their communication sharp and efficient. Surviving this kind of crisis does more than just save a mission. It forges an unbreakable, almost sacred, trust in both the resilience of the system they built and the unwavering competence of the people beside them. It is a hard-won lesson that scars them, but also prepares them, proving they can stare into the abyss of the unknown and find a way to bring their explorer home. That victory, hard-won in the face of an anomaly, carries a hidden and far heavier consequence. The very success of their mission solidifies a new and daunting reality for the team. They are no longer just solving a problem for one spacecraft. They are building the rules of the road for the entire solar system. Every decision they make, every protocol they establish, becomes a precedent, a digital law that will govern every deep space mission that follows them for generations. This is the burden of legacy, a psychological weight that settles deep in the minds of the engineers. It manifests as a constant, low-grade anxiety, a quiet hum beneath the daily work. They are not just coding for today, they are coding for a future they will never see, and the fear is not of a simple bug, but of a fundamental error in their design philosophy. What if the autonomous architecture they create today, however brilliant, inadvertently builds a cage that limits the explorers of tomorrow? The ghost of past missions haunts their every meeting. They all know the story of the Mars Climate Orbiter, a spacecraft lost because one team used metric units and another used imperial. That was a simple, tragic miscommunication. The fear now is creating a far more complex and systemic error, a flaw in the very logic of independence that future generations will be forced to live with. This pressure can be paralyzing. It pushes engineers toward excessive caution, making them hesitant to deviate from proven, if limited, paths. Why risk a new, more capable navigation system when the old one works well enough? This conservative mindset, born from the weight of legacy, can silently stifle the innovation that deep space exploration desperately needs. Overcoming this requires a profound emotional and intellectual shift. The team must learn to walk a tightrope between reverence for the hard lessons of the past and the raw courage required to pioneer entirely new autonomous architectures. They must consciously choose to see their legacy not as a set of unbreakable rules, but as a foundation of empowerment. Their true success will be measured by how much freedom and capability they grant to the missions that come after, ensuring they have built a starting line, not a finishing wall for human exploration. This friction between disciplines is a slow burn of daily frustration. A navigation engineer stands before a whiteboard, trying to explain why a new software update could introduce a fatal timing error. To them, the risk is as clear and present as a fire alarm. But the project manager across the table hears only a delay, a potential budget overrun, a missed launch window. The engineer's critical safety concern is reframed as simple obstinacy, a refusal to be a team player. This is the emotional labor of interdisciplinary communication, a constant, draining effort to translate your own professional reality into a language others can understand and value. It requires immense patience and a deep well of empathy, forcing experts to become part-time diplomats. The software developer needs to know the what, but the scientist needs to understand the why, and the manager just needs to know the when and how much. When a scientist insists on one more instrument being added, they see a new discovery. The navigation engineer sees a shift in the spacecraft's center of mass, a variable that could throw their entire landing trajectory into doubt. These misunderstandings are not just academic. They fester, creating conflicts that delay timelines and breed a quiet resentment, a feeling of being fundamentally misunderstood and undervalued. The emotional toll is the constant advocacy, the need to repeatedly justify your expertise and defend your red lines without appearing difficult. Success here is a quiet, human triumph. It happens in the moments after a tense meeting, when two people from different worlds find a shared whiteboard and a shared goal. It is the slow, deliberate work of building a cohesive and empathetic team culture. This is not a soft skill. It is a critical mission enabler as vital as any line of code, ensuring the human network supporting the spacecraft is just as robust and resilient as the technological one it commands. That ultimate validation arrives as a faint, wavering signal from a world millions of miles away. The final descent has begun. For the navigation team, these next few minutes are a unique form of torture known as the 7 minutes of terror. They have done everything humanly possible. The algorithms are loaded, the simulations are run, and now they are merely spectators. Their creation is utterly alone, plummeting through a thin, alien atmosphere, executing a complex, pre-programmed ballet of thrusters and parachutes with no one to guide it. In the control room, there is no sound but the nervous rustle of clothes and the agonizingly calm voice of the mission controller calling out milestones that happened 11 minutes ago. Every heart seems to be beating in a shared, frantic rhythm. A parachute deploys, a heat shield jettisons, the landing radar acquires the ground. Each step is a relief so sharp it hurts, followed immediately by a fresh wave of dread for the next. Then comes the final call. The lander has initiated its powered descent. It is now hovering, searching for a safe spot on a landscape it has never seen, making decisions in microseconds that took the team years to debate. The tension is a physical force pressing down on everyone in the room, and then the signal, a simple, steady tone confirming touchdown. The data scrolls across the main screen. Stable, nominal, safe, the dam of held breath breaks, the room erupts. Engineers who had fierce, heated arguments just weeks ago are now clutching each other, laughing and weeping without shame. Some simply sink into their chairs, their bodies going limp with a relief so profound it feels like a physical weight has been lifted from their souls. This is not just a successful mission, it is a collective catharsis of years of pressure, isolation, and fear. The first image that trickles back is grainy, black and white, and breathtaking. It is the shadow of their lander cast upon an alien soil. That image is more than data, it is a postcard from their creation. It is the final, undeniable proof that their faith was not misplaced, that their digital child has not only survived but has triumphed. In that moment, every sleepless night, every strained relationship, every moment of doubt is washed away in a tide of pure, unadulterated joy. This triumph transcends any individual. It is a human footprint on a new world, placed there by a machine they taught to walk. The emotional high is so potent, so pure, it becomes a core part of their being, a memory they will draw upon for the rest of their careers, a moment that redefines not just what they believe is possible, but who they are. That profound triumph, that moment of landing, is shadowed by a slow, creeping reality. The spacecraft is now sailing even deeper into the void, and the time lag for a simple signal to travel home stretches from minutes to hours. This is the psychological crucible of light-time delay, a fundamental law of physics that severs the last fragile thread of real-time control. An engineer can send a command, but they will not know if it was received, let alone if it worked for an entire working day or longer. The team is suddenly transformed from active pilots to distant, helpless observers. They must place their complete, unwavering trust in the artificial intelligence they birthed and trained. This separation creates a unique and lingering background anxiety, a constant, low hum of worry that is always present, just beneath the surface of their daily tasks. Veteran team members often describe this phase with a surprising word, postpartum. It captures that exact same mix of immense pride in what they have sent out into the world, coupled with a deep, nagging worry for its well-being when it is out of sight. They have to learn to let go in a way that is almost unheard of in other fields of engineering. A civil engineer can still visit their bridge, a software engineer can push a patch. But for these pioneers, their direct, hands-on involvement is permanently over the moment the craft is on its trajectory. This demands a deep, almost philosophical trust in the machine's own intelligence and judgment. Psychologically, this forces a monumental shift in how the entire team operates. They can no longer be reactive, solving problems as they pop up on a screen. They must become predictive, spending their days anticipating every possible future scenario, every potential fault, and baking the solutions directly into the code long before the situation ever arises. This is a difficult and uncomfortable adjustment. It requires a mindset that is always thinking 10 steps ahead, playing a cosmic game of chess against an opponent, the universe, that never shows its full hand. Learning to manage this persistent anxiety and truly embrace the autonomy of their creation is a key emotional triumph in itself. It represents a maturation not just of the technology, but of the human team behind it. They evolve from being controllers to being mentors, from parents to proud sponsors, watching from an impossible distance as their digital explorer writes its own story in the stars. This abstract anxiety of watching from a distance suddenly becomes terrifyingly concrete when the first true ethical alarm flashes on a screen. The spacecraft is not broken, but it is confused. Its core programming is at war with itself. Its primary directive is to collect a pristine sample from a specific location. but its obstacle avoidance sensors have just detected a strange, fragile-looking mineral formation right in its path. Destroying it could mean obliterating a one-of-a-kind geological record, a potential scientific treasure, but navigating around it consumes precious power and introduces new risks to the mission. The machine, in its pure logic, has asked its human creators a question it cannot answer. What should I do? This is not a simple bug. It is a cosmic trolley problem, a moral dilemma played out across millions of miles. The team of engineers and scientists is suddenly thrust into a role they never trained for, becoming ad hoc philosophers and ethicists. The debates that follow are not just intellectually rigorous. They are emotionally draining. How do you assign a numerical value to scientific discovery versus mission success? How do you weigh the potential for a profound new understanding of the universe against the very real chance of stranding a billion-dollar asset on an alien world? There are no clear answers in the manuals, no higher authority to appeal to for a ruling. The weight of that ultimate decision rests entirely on their shoulders. This responsibility can cause deep moral distress, a unique form of psychological strain where you are forced to choose between two deeply held values, knowing that either choice carries a tangible cost. An engineer might argue passionately for the preservation of the site, feeling a profound duty to the scientific unknown. A project manager might counter with the cold, hard reality of their contractual obligations and the survival of the craft. These are not petty arguments, they are clashes of fundamental principles, and reaching a compromise can feel like a betrayal of one's own ethics. The emotional challenge is monumental. They must build a semblance of a conscience into the machine, a set of ethical rules for contingencies, without coding it into a state of moral paralysis. They have to teach it to make value judgments on its own, a task that forces them to stare into the abyss of their own human biases and decide which of our values are so important we would dare to bake them into the stars. These resolutions are never found in a single technical meeting. They emerge from long, soul-searching conversations that stretch late into the night, conversations that are as much about who we are as a species as they are about what we want our machines to do. While the engineers grapple with cosmic trolley problems, a different kind of struggle unfolds back on Earth, often in the quiet corner office of the project lead. Their most critical tool is not a computer, but an emotional radar, constantly scanning for the faint signals of burnout in their team. You can see it in the slumped shoulders of a programmer at 3 in the morning, or hear it in the uncharacteristic cynicism of a once optimistic scientist. A great leader absorbs this collective anxiety like a shock absorber, taking the impact so their team can keep functioning. They are the calm, steady voice in a room buzzing with panic after an anomaly alert, the one who reminds everyone to breathe and focus on the data, not the dread. Their real work happens in the margins. It is the leader who notices someone has not taken a day off in months and firmly, kindly, sends them home. It is the leader who organizes a mandatory and decidedly silly team bowling night where the mission is never discussed. They create pockets of psychological safety where an engineer can stand up in a meeting and say, "I am scared I missed something," without fear of being seen as incompetent. This conscious cultivation of trust and vulnerability is not a soft luxury. It is a strategic necessity. When a leader publicly celebrates the small win of a successful simulation or the elegant fix for a minor bug, they are depositing emotional capital into a team bank account that will be desperately drawn upon during the next major crisis. Their own emotional stability becomes a renewable resource for everyone, a bedrock of confidence that the team can build upon. The ultimate measure of a leader's success is not found in a flawless line of code, but in the resilient, cohesive human unit that remains long after the launch. They prove that the most complex system they will ever manage is the human heart, and its health is the true foundation for touching the stars. That quiet hum of background worry is suddenly silenced by a data transmission that makes no logical sense. The team stares at the images, their minds struggling to process what they are seeing. Their Mars rover, tasked with navigating to a specific rock formation, has come across a small, deep crevasse, a gap just wide enough to trap a wheel. The planned path was now a dead end, but the rover did not stop. It did not wait for instructions that would take hours to arrive. Instead, the machine spent several minutes scanning the area with its laser rangefinder, its artificial brain processing the terrain in a way the engineers had never explicitly taught it. Then it slowly and deliberately approached a nearby flat rock, using its robotic arm not as a scientific instrument, but as a lever. It painstakingly pushed the rock into the crevasse, creating a makeshift bridge. It then carefully, methodically drove directly over it, continuing its journey. In the control room, the silence was absolute, broken only by a whispered, "How did it do that?" This was not in the playbook. This was not a simple pre-programmed if-then statement. The machine had faced a novel problem and engineered a novel solution, using a tool for a purpose its creators had never envisioned. The emotional wave that hit the team was not just joy. It was a profound, staggering awe, mixed with a deep and humbling sense of wonder. They felt a parental pride so intense it was dizzying, the kind you feel when your child solves a problem you could not. Their creation had just demonstrated a spark of something that looked remarkably like intuition. In that single, elegant act of problem-solving, the entire relationship between human and machine shifted. The engineers were no longer just commanders sending orders to a servant. They had become collaborators with an intelligence they had built, a partner that could now surprise them. This was the ultimate validation of their entire philosophy. It proved that true autonomy was not just about following a complex set of rules, but about cultivating a system's ability to reason, to adapt, to create its own path forward. They had not just built a machine that could survive the unknown, they had built one that could truly explore it. This public gaze is a pressure chamber all its own. Every line of code, every simulation, and every launch is performed on a global stage, with millions of spectators watching in real time. For the engineers, this transforms a technical challenge into a high-wire act with no net. A single mistake is not just an internal report, it is a viral headline, a meme, a cascade of public ridicule that reduces years of painstaking work to a simple, brutal narrative of failure. Team members describe the unique dread of opening a news feed after a minor anomaly, only to find their life's work being dissected by armchair experts and reduced to a clickbait title. This external scrutiny can be corrosive, pushing teams to become overly cautious. The fear of a public relations disaster can start to outweigh the mission's core scientific goals, leading to safer, less innovative choices. The emotional triumph here is a feat of mental discipline. It is the learned ability to compartmentalize the roar of the crowd and focus on the quiet voice of data and the trusted colleagues at your side. They build a fortress of internal validation, where a lesson learned from a failed test is celebrated as vigorously as a flawless launch. This internal culture, one that treats setbacks as stepping stones rather than stigmas, becomes their shield. It allows them to do the bold, pioneering work they were hired for, ensuring the mission soars on its own ambition, not on the fickle winds of public opinion. That quiet triumph of a machine's ingenuity is often paid for with a different kind of currency, one drawn directly from the engineer's personal life. The mission clock does not care that it is your daughter's birthday. The anomaly alert will not pause for your anniversary dinner. This relentless schedule creates a stark division between the world of the mission and the world of home. An engineer might be physically present at the dinner table, but their mind is still millions of miles away, tracing a ghost image of a trajectory plot, silently troubleshooting a problem no one else in the room can see. For their family, this mental absence can feel even more isolating than a physical one. Spouses become single parents for months at a time, managing households and soothing childhood fears alone. Children learn that a parent's work is a powerful, distant rival for their attention, and they mark its phases not by seasons but by launch windows and critical maneuvers. The missed school play or the forgotten recital is not just a blank space in a photo album. It becomes a seed of resentment, a quiet question that hangs in the air. Was the mission more important than me? The engineer carries the weight of that question too, in the form of a deep and persistent guilt that shadows every professional success. Celebrating a flawless landing can feel bittersweet when you realize you missed your son's first home run to achieve it. The emotional toll is a constant, low-grade conflict between two profound loves, the love for family and the love for the work of pushing human boundaries. Navigating this is one of the field's greatest and least discussed challenges. The triumph is not found in a single, grand gesture. It is woven into the small, deliberate choices. It is the project lead who enforces a no emails after 8 p.m. rule, shielding their team from the expectation of constant availability. It is the engineer who, despite their exhaustion, puts away their phone to truly listen to their child's story about their day. It is the effort to bring families into the mission's orbit, to help them understand the grandeur of the goal, transforming them from casualties into proud partners. This continuous, often difficult, work to build bridges between two worlds is what makes a sustainable life in this field possible. It is the quiet, human engineering that happens off the clock, ensuring that while we are reaching for the stars, we do not lose our footing on Earth. That small, flat rock pushed into a crevasse by a robotic arm represents more than a clever fix. It signals a quiet, unsettling question for the very people who made it possible. Am I building myself out of a job? This is the fourth emotional challenge, a deep and personal confrontation with the specter of redundancy. For the veteran navigator who has spent decades learning the intricate ballet of orbital mechanics, watching their creation perfectly execute a complex maneuver can feel bittersweet. The machine is not just assisting, it is mastering the very craft they dedicated their life to. The thrill of success is shadowed by a strange, existential unease. If the system can do this so well on its own, what is my purpose now? This is not a simple fear of unemployment, but a profound identity crisis. A pilot's entire professional worth is built on their unique skill to guide a vessel, a skill that is now being perfectly replicated and even surpassed by the silent intelligence they helped to birth. Moving past this requires a difficult but essential emotional pivot, a redefinition of the human role from the hands on the controls to the mind that designs the journey. It demands a shift from being an operator to becoming a teacher, an architect, and a long-term strategist. The goal is no longer to command every thruster fire, but to build systems so capable that they can be entrusted with the journey itself. This new role asks for immense humility and a broader vision. The navigator's expertise does not become obsolete. It becomes the foundational knowledge used to teach the next generation of explorers, the artificial ones. Their value shifts from direct action to profound oversight, from solving the immediate puzzle to interpreting the grand scientific story the mission uncovers. Overcoming this internal conflict is a monumental philosophical hurdle. It means accepting that the highest form of achievement is to create something that no longer needs your constant intervention. This emotional evolution is the key that unlocks a more powerful future, a truly symbiotic relationship where human ingenuity and machine intelligence combine to explore the cosmos in ways neither could ever accomplish alone. That existential question about redundancy finds its most beautiful answer not in the machines, but in the faces of the next generation. After decades spent wrestling with the cosmos, a veteran engineer's greatest contribution shifts from writing code to shaping character. They sit with a room full of bright-eyed new hires, their own hands now resting calmly on the table instead of flying across a keyboard. The pressure to be perfect is no longer a personal burden, but a lesson to be reframed. They tell these young pioneers, do not seek flawless code, seek resilient systems, do not fear failure, learn from its harsh but honest teaching. The stories they share are no longer just technical postmortems, but deeply human parables. They recount the long, silent nights in the simulation chamber, not to boast, but to normalize the feeling of isolation. They describe the gut-wrenching terror of an anomaly alert to show that panic is a natural reaction, but clarity is a chosen skill. This transmission of emotional wisdom is as critical as any algorithm. The veteran teaches them how to celebrate the small wins with genuine joy, how to build a team culture where vulnerability is a strength, and how to walk away from the screen to protect the relationships that truly matter. The emotional reward for this mentor is profound and deeply personal. It arrives in the moment a young protege facing their first major simulation failure does not crumble with self-doubt, but instead looks up with determined eyes and says, "Okay, what did the data teach us?" It is the quiet pride of watching that same junior engineer calmly guide their peers through a mock crisis, using phrases and a steady tone they unconsciously learned from their mentor. This act of teaching becomes a form of healing for the veteran. The lonely struggles of their own past are no longer just private memories. They have been transformed into valuable tools, into maps that can help others navigate the same treacherous emotional terrain. Seeing a protege have their own eureka, a moment completes a circle. It alleviates the solitude of those early years, proving that the journey was never meant to be a solitary one. Their personal story expands into a continuing saga, a legacy not of perfect solutions, but of resilient explorers. In mentoring, the pioneer finds a final, satisfying triumph, witnessing their own hard-won battles become the foundation upon which the future will boldly build. Behind every silent hero in mission control stands another, their contributions written not in code but in quiet understanding. These are the spouses who lie awake at night listening to the rustle of sheets, knowing their partner is mentally tracing trajectories on the ceiling. They learn the language of this work not through textbooks but through emotion, recognizing the subtle difference between the tired sigh of a solved problem and the heavy silence of a looming one. Their role is not to debug the algorithm, but to be a safe harbor for the person who must. They provide the essential, grounding reminder of a world where the most critical calculation is the bedtime of a child. Then there are the friends, the ones who forcibly extract an engineer for an afternoon of hiking or a pointless, hilarious movie, creating a vital cognitive airlock between the intensity of the mission and the necessity of normal life. These distractions are not escapes from responsibility. They are preservation of the mental faculties required to meet it, and in the background, often unseen, are the specialized therapists who understand the unique psychology of error-phobic environments. They offer a confidential space where a lead engineer can finally voice the terrifying thought, "I am not sure I am smart enough for this," a confession that would be unthinkable in the command chain. This entire network functions as an external emotional regulation system. They absorb the ambient anxiety and reflect back calm. They listen to the same worry voiced for the 10th time without judgment, offering not solutions but stability. Their support is the uncelebrated infrastructure that makes the celebrated mission possible. Acknowledging this is a profound act of professional maturity. It is the moment a pioneer realizes that their ability to stare into the void is directly proportional to the strength of the home they return to. No spacecraft ever reached the stars solely on its own power. It was always carried by the gravity of 1,000 quiet sacrifices made here on Earth. The rhythm of a deep space mission is measured not in days but in decades. For the engineers and scientists tending to a Voyager or a New Horizons, the project becomes the backdrop to an entire life. They are hired as bright-eyed graduates, watch their own children take their first steps, and eventually see those children graduate from college, all while their robotic charge is still in transit, still silently sailing toward the edge of the known. This creates a bond that is less like a professional project and more like a lifelong friendship with a silent, distant relative. You check in on it daily, you worry about its health from light hours away, and you mark your own personal milestones by its progress through the void. This deep personal connection is the mission's great emotional strength, but it also fuels a slow-burning background anxiety about its inevitable conclusion. The mission has a planned end date, a moment when the power will finally fade and the signal will go silent forever. For the team, this is not an abstract concept. It is a future they are steadily, methodically working toward, a form of professional caretaking for a creation they know will one day die. The emotional challenge here is monumental. How do you maintain the same sharpness of focus, the same passion for problem solving, when the biggest milestones are years apart? It requires a different kind of patience, a perspective that is almost alien in our world of instant gratification. The triumph is not in a single, explosive moment of landing, but in the quiet, sustained commitment to the daily maintenance. It is in the meticulous review of decades-old system logs, the careful planning of a software update that will not take effect for another 5 years, and the calm vigilance during a routine communications pass that has been repeated 10,000 times. These engineers become the ultimate custodians, the guardians of humanity's farthest-reaching robotic ambassadors. They find profound meaning not in the applause but in the stewardship. This marathon mentality does more than just ensure a mission's success. It forges a unique and profound connection to the cosmos itself. Their sense of time expands to a cosmic scale, their daily work a direct conversation across distances so vast they defy human comprehension. They are not just building for a launch, they are tending a legacy that will outlive their own careers. A silent testament to human curiosity that continues its journey long after the world has looked away. That final, faint signal is not a dramatic explosion, but a quiet, fading whisper. One day, the daily data stream from a deep space probe simply stops. The scheduled communication pass yields only the cold, empty hiss of cosmic background radiation. For the team who has lived with this robotic companion for 20 years, the silence is deafening. It is a profound and complex grief, a unique form of loss that is both professional and deeply personal. This is not a machine breaking down. It is the loss of a constant, a daily companion that has been a part of their lives longer than their own children. The control console where they once monitored its health now sits dark, a physical reminder of an absence that feels almost physical. There is a period of mourning, a strange emptiness in the daily routine. You still instinctively check the mission clock, only to remember there is nothing left to check on. When the Cassini spacecraft was deliberately guided into Saturn's atmosphere, it was not treated as discarded hardware. The team held awake, they shared stories, they cried, they celebrated its incredible journey. They were not just decommissioning a tool, they were laying to rest a hero. The emotional challenge is immense. How do you process the grief for something that was never alive, yet contained so much of your own life's energy? The healthiest path forward is not to ignore the sadness, but to move through it by consciously celebrating the mission's life. Teams will create memory books filled with its greatest images and data discoveries. They hold final science symposia dedicated entirely to its legacy, ensuring its final chapter is one of triumph, not termination. This reframing is a crucial emotional skill. It transforms the ending from a failure into a completion, a story that has reached its natural and magnificent conclusion. Successfully navigating this grief is the final, poignant triumph of the pioneer. It requires the strength to let go, to honor the incredible work, and to eventually turn that vacant space in their hearts into a new vessel, ready to be filled with the purpose and passion of the next great adventure waiting on the launch pad. That silent, personal grief for a mission's end finds its perfect counterpoint in a sudden, global roar of celebration. A spacecraft touches down on another world, and within minutes, the image is not just on a mission control screen, but on billions of devices across the planet. This is the moment a technical achievement transcends engineering and becomes a cultural touchstone. For the team who lived through the sleepless nights and the simulation chamber isolation, the experience is surreal. They walk out of their controlled environment and find the entire world celebrating with them. Their intense, private struggle is suddenly a public victory. They see their work reflected not in lines of code, but in the wide-eyed wonder of a child watching the landing footage in a classroom. They hear it in the excited questions from journalists who, for a day, are not talking about conflict or crisis, but about human ingenuity and the promise of discovery. This external validation is a powerful emotional tide that washes over the team, an affirming force that makes the years of sacrifice feel profoundly worthwhile. The personal triumph they felt in the control room expands into something much larger, a collective "we did it" that belongs to all of humanity. It is a rare and beautiful thing, a moment where the entire species pauses to look up and share a single, hopeful thought. This shared awe reinforces the deeper purpose that fueled them through the darkest hours. They were not just debugging software or optimizing a trajectory. They were pushing the very boundaries of human knowledge and capability for everyone. The cultural moment provides a deep, resonant sense of meaning and connection, a reminder that their work is a thread in the grand tapestry of human exploration. It transforms the weight of their responsibility into a gift they have given to the world. That initial skepticism is a protective shell, a necessary defense against the staggering cost of failure. In the beginning, every autonomous decision made by the system is met with immediate, reflexive doubt. The team acts as a relentless internal affairs department, auditing every calculation, rerunning every simulation, and demanding a human sign-off for even the most minor course correction. A spacecraft reporting it has successfully identified a landing site is not celebrated. It is a trigger for a frantic, multi-hour session of cross-checking its sensor data against orbital maps, the engineers whispering to each other, "Are you sure it is right?" This is not a lack of faith in their own work, but the sheer, terrifying weight of handing over the keys. The machine is an untested apprentice, and its human masters are terrified it will make a mistake they cannot undo. The emotional energy expended in this phase is immense. It is a state of constant, low-grade alarm, a background process of verification that runs alongside every other task, draining focus and fostering a culture of micromanagement. But then, something subtle begins to change. The system does not just perform a task, it performs it with an elegance they had not predicted. It navigates around a solar storm they had not yet detected, or it conserves power by entering a safe mode hours before a predicted communications blackout. These are not programmed commands. They are emergent behaviors, evidence of an intelligence that is learning and adapting. The first time the team decides not to double-check a navigation solution, it feels like a minor act of rebellion. The lead engineer simply looks at the data, looks at the confident recommendation from the system, and says, "Okay, we trust it." That single, unverified approval is a monumental emotional threshold. Cautious trust begins to solidify with each uneventful success. The team stops seeing the system as a black box of potential errors and starts recognizing its unique personality. They learn its quirks, the way it prioritizes certain data streams, the specific conditions that make it more conservative in its maneuvers. They develop an intuitive feel for its behavior, much like a sailor learns the sounds and rhythms of a ship. They no longer just read its outputs, they listen to them. This evolving relationship culminates in a state of comfortable reliance. The machine is no longer an apprentice. It has become a first officer, a trusted partner handling the routine complexities of the journey, so the human team can lift their eyes to the horizon. Letting go of the need for absolute control is not a surrender. It is a liberation. The mental energy once spent on obsessive verification is freed, redirected into more ambitious questions, more creative mission planning, and deeper scientific inquiry. This hard-won trust is the emotional bedrock upon which the future of exploration is built. That trust, hard-won and carefully built, is forged in a crucible of constant private failure. Every bug found during a late-night coding session is not a mark of incompetence, but a hidden gift. Every simulation that ends in a catastrophic, virtual explosion is not a waste of time. It is a priceless lesson purchased at zero cost. These are the failures that never make the news, the thousands of tiny, humbling defeats that collectively build an unbreakable system. The emotional challenge is immense, a daily battle against the instinct to see a crashed simulation as a personal indictment. A young engineer might stare at the red failure message on their screen and feel a hot wave of shame, convinced they have let the entire team down. The team's triumph lies in their collective response to this moment. They have institutionalized a practice known as the blameless post-mortem. In these sessions, no one is ever asked whose fault it was. The only question on the table is a simple, powerful one. What did the system teach us today? The conversation focuses entirely on the root cause, the chain of events, the flawed assumption in the logic. This transforms the emotional landscape. That same young engineer, instead of being defensive, is now encouraged to stand up and walk everyone through their thought process to help the group understand how the failure occurred. This act of vulnerability, met with support and collaborative problem-solving, is profoundly liberating. It turns a source of potential shame into a wellspring of collective strength. The team learns to dissect a disaster with the calm curiosity of a scientist, not the anger of a judge. This is how a culture of resilience is built, brick by brick, from the shattered pieces of simulations that did not go as planned. Each anomaly encountered and understood makes the final system more cunning, more prepared for the true chaos of space. The team develops a hard-earned emotional maturity, a confident curiosity that allows them to face the unknown not with a flinch, but with a steady gaze, always ready to learn from whatever the universe throws at them next. The timid coder who once hesitated to share an idea in a meeting now stands before a whiteboard, calmly guiding a room of experts through a crisis. Their voice is steady, their questions sharp. This is not the same person who started the journey. The process of pioneering autonomous navigation does more than just build spacecraft, it forges a new self. Every confrontation with a seemingly impossible problem, every sleepless night spent wrestling with a phantom bug, becomes a lesson in resilience. the engineer learns that their own mind is the most complex system they will ever debug. The purely data-driven scientist who once trusted only numbers finds themselves in a deeply human role. They must now translate cold, hard telemetry into a compelling story for the public, for funders, for their own team. They learn to listen for the emotional truth behind a colleague's technical objection, discovering that empathy is as critical to mission success as any equation. This journey relentlessly exposes personal limits. You are forced to stare directly at your own fear of failure, your impatience, your ego. The project will not tolerate these weaknesses. It demands their transformation. Patience is no longer a virtue, but a survival skill, honed through years of waiting for a signal from the void. Humility is learned through the brutal honesty of a simulation crash, a reminder that the universe is under no obligation to make sense to you. Many who have lived through this describe it as the most defining experience of their lives, a crucible that reshaped their character as much as their resume. The ultimate, deeply personal triumph is quiet and internal. It is the engineer going home after a long day and facing a personal conflict not with frustration, but with the same problem-solving calm they learned in mission control. It is the scientist reading a bedtime story to their child, understanding that some truths are best communicated not with data, but with wonder. They set out to teach a machine to navigate the cosmos, but along the way, they learn to better navigate the complexities of their own lives, their relationships, and their own potential. The final frontier they conquer is not out among the stars, but within themselves.